Look, when Jake Morrison signed up to haul refrigerated cargo across the Andromeda sector, nobody mentioned that his navigation system was held together with what could only be described as optimistic thinking and expired warranty stickers. So when that system decided to take an unscheduled vacation somewhere around the third moon of actually nowhere important, Jake did what any reasonable human would do. He landed on the nearest planet and hoped for the best. That planet was Craxus 7. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with galactic geography, Craxus 7 holds a very special place in the universe. It's the only planet where insurance companies don't just charge higher premiums, they physically laugh at you and then hang up. It's classified as a Class 9 death world, which in galactic terms means everything here can kill you, will kill you, and has probably already killed you in 17 theoretical timelines. The reason? Craxus 7 is home to the Vorathians. 12 feet of pure reptilian nightmare, built like someone took a T-Rex, gave it 6 eyes, added opposable thumbs, and then asked it to get really, really angry about everything. They hunt in packs of 20. They can smell fear from 3 miles away. Their idea of a lullaby is the sound of bones cracking. The galactic community had visited Craxus 7 exactly once, took one look at the Vorathians, and collectively decided that some planets should just be left alone forever. Jake Morrison had never heard of them. This was partly because Jake had slept through most of his galactic survey briefings, but mostly because humans had only been part of the galactic community for about 8 years, and in that time they'd developed a reputation that made most species deeply uncomfortable. Humans, the galaxy had discovered, looked at the universe's most dangerous creatures and said things like, "Aw, who's a good boy," and "I'm gonna call him Steve." There were 14 documented cases of humans trying to adopt animals that were actively trying to eat them. 3 cases of humans establishing diplomatic relations with hive mind parasites by offering them snacks. And 1 extremely concerning incident where a human had convinced a sentient black hole to just talk about its feelings. The galaxy had concluded that humans were either the bravest species ever discovered or had a fundamentally broken survival instinct. Possibly both. Jake's ship, which he'd named Betsy, because apparently spaceships needed grandma names, made a sound like a dying accordion as it touched down in a clearing. The landing gear groaned. Something exploded softly in the cargo hold. Jake unbuckled his harness and stretched, completely unaware that he'd just parked in the exact center of a Vorathian breeding ground. Outside, the forest had gone very, very quiet. This was not the peaceful kind of quiet. This was the kind of quiet that happens when every creature with functional survival instincts has suddenly remembered urgent business elsewhere. The kind of quiet that suggested something very large and very hungry was about to make an appearance. Jake popped the hatch and stepped out into the humid air, squinting at the purple-tinted sky. Nice place, bit warm, smelled like a combination of rotting vegetation and something else he couldn't quite identify, probably just alien plants doing alien plant things. That other smell was fear, specifically the fear of about 30 different species of prey animals that had just watched him land. Jake pulled out his portable scanner and gave it a shake. The screen flickered, displayed a recipe for pancakes, and then died completely. Perfect. He was stranded on an unknown planet with no communications, no navigation, and no idea where he was. He did have 3 tons of frozen vegetables in his cargo hold, which felt less useful by the second. Behind him, something moved in the trees. Something big. Jake heard it, that soft rustling that suggested large-scale displacement of foliage. He turned around and found himself looking at Krieg, alpha of the local Vorathian pack, who had been studying this strange metal object for the past 10 minutes, trying to decide if it was food, a threat, or some kind of really weird egg. Krieg was having a day. First, his mate had just laid their 3rd clutch of eggs. Then, his second-in-command had challenged him over territory rights to the eastern hunting grounds. And now, this metal thing had fallen from the sky and deposited what appeared to be the galaxy's most confusing creature directly into his breeding grounds. The creature was tiny, barely 6 feet tall, pink and soft-looking. It was wearing some kind of artificial hide in an offensive shade of blue. By all logic, it should have been running. Or dead. Or running while dead, which Krieg had seen happen exactly once, and didn't like to think about. Instead, it looked directly at him and said, "Oh, hey buddy, you wouldn't happen to know where I could find a mechanic, would you?" Krieg's 6 eyes blinked in sequence, a biological response that usually happened when his brain needed to restart. This creature was either speaking to him like an equal, which was impossible, or was so stupid it didn't understand the concept of a food chain. The rest of the pack began emerging from the trees, forming a loose circle around Jake and his ship. 20 Varathians, each one capable of crushing a boulder with their bare claws, each one utterly baffled by what they were witnessing. Jake looked around at the gathering crowd and smiled. Wow, is this like a welcoming committee thing? That's really nice of you guys. Sorry about dropping in unannounced, my nav system's being a bit dramatic. Krieg made a sound somewhere between a growl and a confused wheeze. His translator chip, which had been installed during that one disastrous first contact with the galactic community, was working perfectly. The problem wasn't translation. The problem was that this creature's words made sense, individually, but formed sentences that violated everything Krieg understood about the universe. This was going to be a very long day. Jake had been in awkward social situations before. There was that time he'd accidentally insulted a Centaurian diplomat by complimenting their antennae, which apparently was the equivalent of commenting on someone's kidney function. There was the incident at the trade station, where he'd used the wrong bathroom and started a minor religious schism, but standing in a circle of 12-foot-tall reptilian hunters who looked like they'd been designed by a committee of horror movie directors felt like a new personal record. The big one in front of him, the one with the extra scars and what Jake could only describe as a really impressive murder face, was clearly in charge. Jake had learned in his brief time in space that pack dynamics were pretty universal. Biggest one, most scars, probably the boss. So, Jake said with the confidence of someone who'd never actually read a survival guide. I'm Jake. Jake Morrison. Human. Obviously. You folks from around here? Krieg's translator chip made a sound like it was considering early retirement. The Alpha took a step forward, drawing himself up to his full height, which put his smallest eye about level with the top of Jake's head. This was a threat display. A very clear, very obvious threat display that had sent entire species running for their escape pods. Jake tilted his head slightly. Wow, you're really tall. Do you play basketball? Wait, do you even have basketball here? Probably not. Forget I asked. Thrax, Krieg's second in command, leaned toward his Alpha and whispered in their native tongue, which sounded like gravel being gargled by thunder. He's defective. Must be. No creature this small survives here without fear. He's not showing submission, Krieg grumbled back. Not showing aggression. He's just standing there like we're having a conversation at a market. Maybe humans are parasites. They infect the brain and remove common sense? Would explain so much about the galactic reports. Jake, blissfully unaware of this exchange, was looking around at the assembled pack with genuine interest. Is this a territory thing? Because if I landed somewhere I shouldn't have, totally my bad. My nav system has been acting up since I flew through that ion storm near Proxima. Well, I say flew through, more like accidentally took a detour into because I was trying to heat up my coffee and wasn't paying attention. Krieg made a decision. He would try the traditional Varathian method of establishing hierarchy. He would bare his fangs, all 64 of them, and produce the killing roar that had sent prey animals into cardiac arrest from pure terror alone. He opened his mouth. The sound that emerged had been refined over millions of years of evolution into the perfect instrument of fear. It echoed through the forest. Small creatures 3 miles away spontaneously fainted. The trees seemed to lean away from the noise. Jake waited until the roar finished, then nodded appreciatively. Good lungs, man. Seriously. Do you do vocal warm-ups or is that just natural? I used to teach kindergarten and we did this breathing exercise that might help with your projection. Several members of the pack sat down. Just sat down right there in the dirt, because their legs had apparently decided to stop participating in this conversation. Thrax looked at Krieg. Krieg looked at Thrax. Neither of them had any idea what to do with this information. He's broken, Thrax said finally. Broken or suicidal. Humans were marked as a species of interest, Krieg said slowly, trying to remember the briefing that had been broadcast across the galaxy 8 years ago. They reportedly have high pain tolerance, pack bonding instincts, and a tendency to adopt anything that moves. I also, Thrax added helpfully, brought something called a cat to the Galactic Council and insisted it was a member of their delegation. Did the Council accept it? The cat is now a senior advisor on agricultural policy. Krieg's head hurt. This happened sometimes when the universe stopped making sense. Jake had wandered over to examine one of the younger pack members, a juvenile Varathian who'd been too curious to maintain proper threatening distance. Hey there, kiddo. You're what, 3 years old? 4? You got that teenage awkward phase thing going on. Don't worry, you'll grow into those claws. The juvenile made a sound like a confused chirp and looked desperately at its parents for guidance. Its parents had no guidance to give. This was not covered in any of their parenting instincts. Here's the thing, Jake continued, addressing the pack at large like they were colleagues at a particularly weird office meeting. I just need to fix my ship. Should take maybe 6-7 hours if I can jury-rig the navigation coupling. Then I'll be out of your scales. Or fur, or whatever you've got going on under there. Seriously though, if you know anyone who does repairs, I've got 3 tons of frozen vegetables I can trade. They're premium grade, only slightly thawed. Krieg felt something he'd never experienced before. It took him a moment to identify it because it was so foreign to his existence as an apex predator at the top of the food chain. It was confusion so profound it had looped back around to become a form of existential dread. You, Krieg said, his voice translator giving the words a mechanical edge, are in the breeding grounds of the most dangerous predator species on this planet. You are prey-sized, prey-shaped, made of meat, and you are asking about mechanics and offering vegetables. Jake brightened. Oh, you guys can talk, that's awesome. Yeah, so about those mechanics? Thrax leaned toward Krieg again. We could just eat him. Could we? Krieg wondered aloud. Would we? I'm no longer certain about anything. He might taste terrible. Feels irrelevant to the larger philosophical crisis we're currently experiencing. Jake checked his wrist communicator, which was displaying the time in a time zone that no longer existed on a planet he'd never been to. Tell you what, I'm gonna start working on my ship. You folks do whatever it is you do. If you think of anyone who might have parts for a stellar-class hauler, let me know. I'll be the guy elbow-deep in engine components, trying not to electrocute himself. He walked back toward his ship, leaving 20 Vorathians standing in stunned silence, questioning everything they'd ever known about the natural order of the universe. Krieg watched him go. Then he looked at his pack. Then he looked at Thrax. Get the others, he said quietly. We need to figure out what to do about this. Eat him? I'm starting to think that might actually be the less complicated option. Jake had been working on his ship for about an hour when he became aware that he had an audience. The entire Vorathian pack had arranged themselves in a semicircle around Betsy, watching him with the intensity of scientists observing a new and potentially dangerous microorganism. He poked his head out from under the access panel, wrench in hand, face smudged with something that was probably grease but might have been alien engine fluid. You guys need something? 'Cause I gotta say, the staring thing is a little intense. Krieg had spent the last hour in consultation with his pack. They debated, argued, and at one point nearly came to blows over the fundamental question of what to do about the human. Thrax had voted for eating him. Several others had voted for just leaving and pretending this never happened. One of the younger members had suggested asking him to leave politely, which had earned him a lecture on Vorathian dignity. Finally, Krieg had decided on a test. A proper test that would determine once and for all whether this human was brave, stupid, or operating on some kind of alien logic that Vorathians simply couldn't comprehend. He would present the human with his newborn. In Vorathian culture, newborns were sacred, untouchable. Presenting your offspring to a stranger was either a sign of ultimate trust or the setup to the most justified homicide in the pack's history. If the human showed aggression, the pack would have justification to end him. If the human showed fear and refused, they'd have confirmation that he was at least partly sane. If the human ran, well, that was just dinner with extra steps. Krieg had run through every possible scenario. He was prepared for all of them. He was not prepared for what actually happened. Human Jake, Krieg rumbled, his voice carrying the weight of ceremony. I present to you a test of character. Oh boy, Jake muttered, climbing down from the ship. Is this going to be one of those honor duel things? Because I should tell you, I took exactly one self-defense class and I spent most of it learning how to fall down safely. Krieg reached into the den entrance behind him and emerged carrying a bundle wrapped in soft moss. The pack went silent. This was a moment of significance. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. He unwrapped the bundle carefully, revealing Snick, his third-born, barely a week old. The infant Vorathian was about the size of a human toddler, scales still soft and translucent, 6 eyes not yet fully coordinated. It made a small, chirping sound and waved one tiny claw in the air. Krieg held the newborn out toward Jake. Hold him. The pack tensed. This was it, the moment of truth. Jake's entire demeanor changed in an instant. His eyes went soft, his voice dropped to that particular register that humans apparently reserved for babies of all species. Oh my God, is that a baby? Are you a baby? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. He reached out and took Snick with practiced ease, immediately adjusting his grip to support the head and back. Okay, first of all, you're not supporting the neck properly. Newborns, even reptilian ones, have weak neck muscles. See? You want to cradle the head like this. Krieg's translator chip made a sound like a computer trying to divide by zero. Jake continued, gently rocking the infant while examining him with professional interest. He's what, 5 days old? 6? Good color, eyes are tracking decently, claws look healthy. Are you feeding on demand or on a schedule? Because honestly, demand is better for the first few months. Builds better attachment patterns. Thrax's jaw had actually fallen open. Just hanging there, he looked like a broken animatronic. Also, Jake went on, completely oblivious to the fact that he was lecturing an apex predator on childcare. Your swaddling technique needs work. You want it snug but not restrictive. Here, watch. He adjusted the moss wrapping with quick, efficient movements. See? Secure, but he can still move his limbs. That's important for development. Nick, apparently deciding that this strange pink creature was acceptable, made a contented gurgling sound and grabbed Jake's finger with one tiny claw. Oh, look at that grip strength. You're going to be so strong when you grow up. Yes, you are. Who's going to be a big, scary predator? You are. Krieg had stopped processing information approximately 30 seconds ago. His brain had simply given up and was now playing a loading screen. One of the pack members, a female named Kessa, leaned toward Thrax. Is he giving our alpha parenting advice? I think he is. And the alpha is listening? I think he's broken. They're both broken. Maybe all of us are broken. Is this what enlightenment feels like? Jake shifted Snick to his shoulder, patting his back gently. He needs to burp, by the way. You can tell by the way he's squirming. Come on, little guy, let's get that air out. He patted rhythmically until Snick produced a small burp that was probably adorable by Vorathian standards and sounded like a miniature avalanche by everyone else's. There we go. Good job, buddy. Jake handed the infant back to Krieg, who took him automatically, still staring at the human with all 6 eyes. Seriously, though, you guys need to think about den arrangement. The humidity's good, but you want better air circulation. And I noticed your nesting materials are all the same texture. Newborns benefit from varied tactile experiences. Helps with sensory development. You, Krieg said slowly, his voice barely functioning, just held my newborn offspring. Yeah, he's great. You must be really proud. First kid? Third. Oh, nice. So you're past the panic phase. That's good. Although let me tell you, each one's different, so don't get too comfortable. Thrax sat down heavily, then lay down, then contemplated whether consciousness was even worth maintaining anymore. Jake wiped his hands on his pants. Anyway, I should get back to work on the ship. But seriously, if you want some tips on infant care, I taught kindergarten for 6 years before I got fired. Well, let go, due to philosophical differences. Apparently letting 5-year-olds unionize is frowned upon. He walked back to his ship, leaving the entire pack in various states of cognitive shutdown. Krieg looked down at Snick, who was still making happy chirping sounds. Then he looked at his pack. Then he looked at the human, who was cheerfully humming something, while rummaging through engine parts. I need, Krieg said quietly, every adult in this pack to confirm that what just happened actually happened. A chorus of confused affirmations followed. The human, Thrax said from his position on the ground staring at the sky, just gave you parenting advice, while holding your newborn, who you handed to him, which he accepted, like it was normal. Humans, Kessa said thoughtfully, don't have a fear response. They have a how can I help response. That's worse, Thrax replied. That's so much worse. That's worse than anything I could have imagined. Krieg carefully returned Snick to the den, his movements mechanical. He'd been alive for 23 years. He'd survived countless hunts, territorial disputes, and one very unfortunate incident with a plasma storm. He'd thought he understood the universe. He'd been wrong. Nobody, he announced to his pack, is eating the human. We weren't going to, someone muttered. I know. That's what concerns me. By hour 3 of Jake's repair work, the pack had settled into a new routine that nobody could quite explain. Half of them were maintaining a perimeter, which was their actual job. The other half were watching Jake, with the fascination usually reserved for particularly violent weather phenomena. Thrax had appointed himself as the voice of reason, which was ironic considering he'd spent the first hour lying on the ground questioning reality. He approached Krieg, who was sitting near the den entrance, still processing the infant incident. This is a dominance play, Thrax said firmly. It has to be. The human is establishing superiority by demonstrating fearlessness. He gave me advice on burping techniques. Exactly. Peak dominance. That doesn't make any sense. Nothing about the last 3 hours makes any sense. I'm working with what I have. Jake emerged from under the ship again, this time covered in significantly more grease and what appeared to be purple foam. Hey, quick question. Do you guys have any conductive material, like, I don't know, metal deposits or crystalline formations? My coupling's completely fried and I need something to bridge the gap. Krieg gestured vaguely toward the eastern ridge. There are copper deposits 2 miles that direction. Awesome, thanks. Jake started walking. Wait. Krieg stood up. You're just going to walk into the forest? Alone? On a death world? Jake turned back, looking genuinely confused. Yeah? I mean, I need the copper. Ship's not gonna fix itself. There are predators in those forests. Well, yeah, you guys are right here. Other predators. Jake shrugged. I'll be fine. I've got my wrench. He held up a tool that looked like it would be useful for light maintenance and absolutely nothing else. Kessa made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. It was hard to tell. I'll send escorts, Krieg said, because apparently that was his life now. Making sure the suicidal human didn't wander into something's mouth. Cool. Company's nice. Jake headed toward the tree line, followed by 3 Varathians who looked like they were escorting a bomb that might detonate at any moment. Thrax watched them go. We're bodyguarding him now. We're actively protecting the creature that walked into our breeding grounds. I noticed. Our ancestors are weeping. I'm surprised everyone is well. Krieg settled back down and tried to figure out where exactly his life had gone sideways. It had probably started with that galactic survey team 15 years ago. Before that, things had been simple. Hunt, eat, breed, defend territory. Standard apex predator stuff. Then the galaxy had shown up and insisted they were sentient and had rights and should maybe stop eating the survey teams. That had been adjustment enough. But at least the other species had made sense. They were either predators who understood hierarchy or prey who understood fear. Humans were neither. Kessa approached, settling next to him. The juveniles are asking questions. What kind of questions? Whether humans are edible, whether they're immortal, whether we're actually the apex predators anymore, or if we've been demoted. What did you tell them? 4 months at least I'd get back to them once I figured out the answers myself. From inside the den, Sneak made a small chirping sound. Krieg's mate, Vessa, emerged partway, her expression suggesting she'd been listening to the entire situation and had opinions about it. The human was good with the hatchling, she said simply. Miss. Better than you were with your first. I dropped him exactly once. And he remembered it for 6 months. Vessa's 6 eyes narrowed in what might have been amusement. This human, Jake, he's not a threat. Obviously not. And he's not prey. Definitely not. So what is he? Krieg considered this. It was the question that had been bothering him since the humans stepped off that ridiculous ship. I think he's just human. And that's the problem. Jake returned 40 minutes later with a chunk of copper, his 3 escorts looking frazzled. One of them, a young male named Drex, immediately sought out Krieg. Alpha, report. Go ahead. We encountered a thornback. 600 pounds, fully grown, territorial. Krieg felt his blood chill. Thornbacks were one of the few creatures on Craxus 7 that even Vorathians avoided when possible. Armored, aggressive, and angry about existing. And? The human said, "Whoa, big guy," and then asked if it was having a bad day. Did it attack? It tried. The human stood his ground. Just stood there. We were preparing to intervene when the thornback stopped. Stopped? Just stopped. Stared at him. Then left. Like it couldn't process what it was seeing and decided this wasn't worth the energy. Krieg put his head in his hands. There's more, Drex continued. On the way back, the human found a nest of razor wasps. Do you know what he did? I don't want to know. He said they looked stressed and moved us to a different path so we wouldn't bother them. Alpha, he showed more concern for the razor wasp Sol Belvi than his own survival. Thrax had been listening. That settles it. The human's threat assessment system is completely inverted. Things that should terrify him don't register. He's operating on entirely different survival logic. It's not logic, Kessa said. It's something else. Remember the galactic briefings. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on a death world called Earth. They didn't develop to be the strongest or fastest. They developed to be the most relentlessly optimistic problem solvers in their ecosystem. That's horrifying. It gets worse. They apparently domesticated wolves by feeding them and being nice to them until the wolves forgot they were supposed to be wild predators. The pack absorbed this information in silence. Jake, completely unaware of this discussion, had returned to his ship and was now singing something while working. The words were incomprehensible, but the tune was aggressively cheerful. "How long has he been doing that?" Krieg asked. "About 20 minutes, Drax replied. "I think it's a human thing. They make noise when they're happy. We growl when we're happy." "Yes, but theirs sounds like they're trying to spread the happiness to everyone in auditory range, against their will." Krieg watched as Jake successfully reattached something important looking and gave it a pat like it was a loyal pet. The human had been here for less than 4 hours and had somehow inverted the entire pack's understanding of how the universe worked. "We can't let him leave," Krieg said suddenly. Drax whipped his head around. "What?" "Think about it. He lands here, in the most dangerous location on the planet. Not only survives, but thrives. Gives parenting advice. Makes friends with razor wasps. If he leaves and tells other humans, we'll have dozens of them showing up thinking this is some kind of adventure tourism opportunity. That's actually a valid concern. Worse. If other species find out a human spent time with us and we didn't eat him, our reputation is finished. We'll go from apex predators to that pack that adopted a human." Vesa emerged fully from the den. "Or," she said carefully, "we accept that the galaxy is stranger than we thought, and having a human around might not be the worst thing." "How do you figure?" "We fixed your swaddling technique in 30 seconds. Do you know how long I've been trying to get you to do it right?" Krieg had no response to that. Jake called out from the ship. "Hey, good news! I think I can get this working by tonight. Bad news, I'm definitely gonna need food soon. You guys know what humans eat? Because I've got vegetables, but I'm starting to think that's not gonna cut it." Thrax looked at Krieg. "Are we feeding him now?" "Apparently. We've gone from apex predators to a hospitality service." "I'm aware. Just checking." The news traveled fast. Not human fast, which would have involved social media and gone viral in minutes, but galactic fast, which meant it reached the nearest trade station by late afternoon, and had spread to 3 sectors by dinner time. A human, on Craxus 7. Still alive. Not only alive, but apparently having a pleasant afternoon. The first ship arrived, just as Jake was testing his newly repaired navigation system. It was a small science vessel crewed by a species called the Quillix, who looked like someone had given octopi a corporate expense account and a deep fascination with anthropology. Their captain, whose name was translated as 7 Branches of Curiosity but went by 7, practically tumbled out of the airlock. "Is it true? Is there actually a human integrated with a Vorathian pack?" Jake waved from where he was running diagnostics. "Integrated is a strong word. I'd say more like temporarily coexisting. My ship broke down." "But you're alive, and they haven't eaten you." "Why does everyone keep saying that? These guys have been super helpful." Jake gestured at the pack, who were arranged around the clearing in various poses of resignation. "Krieg over there told me where to find copper. Drex helped me carry it back. Kessa gave me some kind of dried meat thing that was actually pretty good, once I got past the texture." Evan's tentacles writhed in what the translator interpreted as extreme excitement. "This is unprecedented. Vorathians are classified as a non-contact species. Galactic protocol is to avoid this entire planet." "Really?" Jake looked at Krieg. "Is that true?" Krieg, who had been hoping this day couldn't get worse and was being proven wrong in real time, nodded slowly. "Huh. That seems kind of discriminatory. You guys are nice." "We literally tried to intimidate you into leaving," Thrax pointed out. "Yeah, but, not that hard." Within the hour, 2 more ships had arrived, then 5. By evening, there were 17 vessels in orbit, and a small crowd of various alien species gathered at a respectful distance from the pack, all trying to document the impossible. A Zentarii news crew set up lighting equipment. "This is Vix Halloran, reporting live from Craxus 7, where we're witnessing what experts are calling the most significant interspecies contact event in recent history. Behind me, you can see a human, identified as Jake Morrison, who has somehow survived nearly 8 hours in direct contact with Vorathian pack hunters." Jake looked at the camera and waved. "Hi, Mom. If you're watching this, the ship's fine. Mostly fine. I'll call you next station." Krieg watched this circus unfold with the expression of someone whose quiet life had been demolished by forces beyond their control. More ships were arriving. A collective representative was trying to establish a formal diplomatic channel. Someone had started selling commemorative merchandise. "This is a nightmare," Thrax muttered. Could be worse, Drex offered. I don't know. I'm trying to be optimistic. The humans rubbing off on me. A distinguished-looking Quillic scientist approached, keeping a careful distance from the pack. Excuse me, Alpha Krayek? I'm Dr. Mixnoth, Xenopsychology. May I ask you a few questions? Craig gestured wearily for him to continue. How did first contact proceed? Was there aggression? Display behavior? I roared at him. And his response? He complimented my lung capacity and offered breathing exercises. Dr. Mixnoth's tentacles went rigid. Extraordinary. And when you presented him with your offspring? That was a dominance test, yes? But it was supposed to be. What happened? He gave me a lecture on proper neck support and criticized my swaddling technique. Craig paused. He was right about the swaddling. The scientist made rapid notes on a datapad. This aligns with all observed human behavior. They don't process threat the way other species do. Their first impulse isn't fight or flight, it's optimize and assist. Vesa had emerged to watch the proceedings, Snick cradled in her arms. Is that why they're so successful in the galactic community, even though they're so new? Partly. They're also persistence hunters. On their homeworld, Earth, they evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They applied that same logic to everything else. Diplomacy, trade, problem-solving. They just keep going until they succeed or die trying. That's horrifying, Thrax said. It gets worse. They also have something called pack bonding. They form emotional attachments to virtually anything. Other species, machines, plants. There's a documented case of a human forming a bond with a robot vacuum and crying when it stopped working. The pack absorbed this in silence. Jake had finished his diagnostics and wandered over to the gathering. Hey, so I've got good news and bad news. Good news is the ship's ready to go. Bad news is I kind of promised Krieg I'd help him reorganize the den for better airflow, so I'm gonna stick around another day or two if that's cool. You're staying? Seven asked. Voluntarily. Yeah, I mean, these guys have been great. Plus, I kind of want to make sure Snick's settling in okay. Krieg mentioned the other hatchlings have been a bit aggressive toward him, and I have some thoughts on sibling rivalry management. Dr. Mixnoth leaned toward Krieg. He's consulting on your family dynamics now. He has a chart, Krieg said hollowly. He made a chart. About my children, with color coding. The news reporter adjusted her camera. We're getting reports that other humans are planning to visit Craxus 7 now that it's been confirmed safe. It's not safe, Krieg said immediately. It's a death world. Everything here can kill you. But Jake survived. Jake is broken. Please don't send more broken humans. But it was too late. The damage was done. A human had survived Craxus 7. And not just survived, but thrived. He'd held an apex predator's newborn and given parenting advice. He'd walked past a thornback and caused it to have an existential crisis. He'd befriended razor wasps. The galaxy's understanding of both humans and Varathians had shifted in the span of a single afternoon. A Galactic Council representative arrived in full diplomatic regalia. Alpha Krieg, the Council would like to formally recognize this contact and potentially establish Craxus 7 as an open diplomatic location. Absolutely not. We're prepared to offer significant trade incentives. We don't want trade. We want to be left alone. Too late for that, Thrax muttered, watching as a group of humans began setting up what appeared to be a base camp at the edge of the clearing. They're moving in. Jake noticed the growing crowd and looked vaguely concerned for the first time all day. Guys, is this normal? Should there be this many people? No, Krieg said. This is entirely your fault. What did I do? You existed. Here, without dying. Do you understand how that's affected our reputation? Jake thought about it. Not really, no. Vesa shifted Snick to her other arm. I think what my mate is trying to say is that you've changed how the galaxy sees us. We were the monsters everyone avoided. Now we're the pack that the friendly human visits. Oh, Jake looked genuinely apologetic. Sorry about that. I really was just trying to fix my ship. We know, Krieg said. That's what makes it worse. The sun was setting over Craxus 7, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange. Jake stood surrounded by Varathians on one side and a growing crowd of galactic onlookers on the other, completely oblivious to the fact that he'd just rewritten centuries of interspecies relations by being aggressively helpful and friendly. Dr. Mixnoth was still taking notes. Remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. The human shows no awareness of his own significance. These tracks, Thrax said. Awareness would require understanding danger. He doesn't have that. Krieg looked at his pack, then at Jake, then at the circus that had assembled in his territory. We're keeping him. What? Multiple voices said simultaneously. If he leaves, more will come. If he stays, maybe they'll be satisfied with observing one human instead of sending dozens. Plus, Krieg admitted grudgingly, the den reorganization ideas are actually good. Jake brightened. Really? Oh man, I have so many ideas. Have you considered a ventilation system? And we should talk about your territorial boundaries. I think you're overextending on the Eastern Ridge. I'm going to regret this, Krieg said. Absolutely, Thrax agreed, but I don't see a better option. And so it was decided, by the alpha of the most dangerous pack on the most dangerous planet in the sector, that they would adopt a human. The galaxy would never be the same. 3 months later, Jake Morrison held the title of Cultural Liaison and Organizational Consultant to the Varathian Pack, which was definitely not what he'd expected when he signed up to haul frozen vegetables across space. His official duties included den optimization, conflict resolution, and what Krieg reluctantly called making sure we don't accidentally start an interstellar incident. His unofficial duties involved teaching baby Varathians basic problem-solving skills while their parents watched in confused resignation. Okay, Snick, one more time. If you can't reach the food, what do you do? The hatchling chirped thoughtfully, then dragged over a rock to stand on. Yes. See, Krieg? Problem-solving. He's gonna be brilliant. Krieg, who had spent 3 months slowly accepting his new reality, just nodded. The pack had adapted. They still hunted, still defended territory. They just also had a human who color-coded their patrol schedules and hosted what he called team-building exercises. Thrax had stopped questioning it around week 2. He reorganized our supply caches, and we haven't had a single territorial dispute since. I don't understand it, but I'm not fighting it anymore. The galactic community had also adapted. Craxus 7 was now a recognized diplomatic zone. Scientists visited regularly, tourism was strictly forbidden, mostly because Krieg had threatened to eat anyone who tried. Jake's communicator chirped. A distress call from a freighter stranded near a Class 8 death world called Mordax Prime. Hey Krieg, I gotta take this. Don't volunteer for anything dangerous. Jake answered the call. Jake Morrison here. You need help? I can be there in 6 hours. Krieg put his head in his hands. What? Jake said innocently. They sound stressed. They're stranded on a death world. So was I. Worked out fine. Dr. Mixnoth, who'd taken up permanent residence studying the pack, made another note. Subject continues to display zero learned caution despite 3 months of exposure to death world conditions, remains cheerfully optimistic about survival odds. Bessa settled next to Krieg, watching Jake prepare his ship while simultaneously explaining to Sneak why helping people was important. You know he'll come back. I know. And he'll probably bring another problem with him. I know that too. Are you okay with this? Krieg watched Jake ruffle the scales on Snick's head while the hatchling chirped happily. The human who'd accidentally walked into their lives and refused to have the decency to be afraid. Who'd somehow turned the most feared predators in the sector into a family that included him. I'm getting there, Krieg admitted. Jake's ship powered up, the engines running smoothly thanks to his repairs and Krieg's begrudging assistance with the more complex systems. He waved from the cockpit. Back in a few days. Don't let the juveniles practice hunting on the diplomatic visitors while I'm gone. Thrax happened one time, Thrax muttered. The ship lifted off, leaving the pack standing in their territory, watching it go. A young Varathian approached Krieg nervously. Alpha, is Jake our pack now? Krieg considered this. By traditional definitions, no, humans weren't Varathians. But pack wasn't just about species, it was about who stood with you, who made you better, even when they drove you absolutely insane doing it. Yes, Krieg said finally. He's pack. The news spread quickly through the group. The human was pack. Weird, broken, aggressively helpful pack, but pack nonetheless. And somewhere in space, Jake Morrison headed toward another disaster, completely unaware that he'd accidentally done the impossible. He'd befriended apex predators by the simple method of treating them like people who could use a hand. The galaxy had finally learned what Earth had known for millennia. Humans didn't conquer through fear or force. They conquered through relentless, optimistic friendliness, until you forgot you were supposed to be enemies. It was the most terrifying survival strategy in the universe. And it worked every single time.